To begin work on the Gradebook project, go to google.com, click Sign In, and then enter your email address and password and click the Sign In button. This will bring you to your Google account, and if you don't see this exact screen, note that along the horizontal menu bar there are a number of options here, but you want to make sure you're in the Drive area. So click on the Drive option in the horizontal menu bar. By the way, you may see this under the More menu if you don't see it at the top of the screen. So we're in the Google Drive area, and note that under My Drive we had created the UB subfolder, and under that subfolder we have the folder for all our work in new technologies learning. So I'm going to double click on the icon that folder to get into that directory. Well, the next thing we need to do is click the Create button, and we have the option to present a number of different Google Docs types, but for this application we'll be looking to create a spreadsheet. So select Spreadsheet and click on it, and this will open up a new blank spreadsheet. If you get an annoying message like this, by the way, you can just click Dismiss to get rid of it. I'm going to hit Control minus, Command minus on the Macintosh, just to zoom out a little bit. And the first thing we want to do is title this spreadsheet. So where it says Untitled Spreadsheet, click on that, and then let's rename it Project _02 _1, because this is Module 2, Project 1. And then we'll give it a name, Gradebook. And then remember, our convention in this class is that you put your last name at the end of the file name. Click OK. And now that we have our spreadsheet named, we're also going to ask you to embed your name in the document. And then, starting in column A, row 3, put the title of a hypothetical course, a course that you might teach or that you are teaching or training if you're already employed. Now we'll worry about formatting these entries later on. The next thing we want to do, starting in column A5, is begin putting in our column headers for the data comprising this spreadsheet. So we're going to begin with the name entries for our students, and then recall that in the sample project, the exemplar, we have 5 homework assignments. Now I'm going to label these HW1, HW space 2 for starters. Now remember, there's 5 of these, so I'm going to show you a quick trick for generating the rest of the column entries without having to type them all. If you click on the first cell and then click and drag across to the second cell, we have these 2 cells highlighted. So the first cell serves as the initial value, and the second one designates the type of increment you want to use. So you'll note that there's a little square in the lower right corner of the second highlighted entry, and if you mouse over it you could get a crosshairs. Now let's just click on that and drag across 3, 4, 5, and when you release, note that the other 3 column entries have been created for you and auto incremented based on the first cell as your initial value and the second cell as your example increment. Now I want to narrow these up a little bit so that I can continue here. So I'll show you another quick trick. If you click on column B and drag across to column F, we'll highlight all the columns in that range. And then if you double click between any 2 columns, you can narrow up the columns to accommodate the header information by the width of the widest header. These are all approximately the same length, but you'll notice that they've been uniformly resized, and that opens up a little bit more screen real estate here so we can continue entering in our column header information. Let's now continue with our column headers for quizzes 1 through 3. So I'll type in Q space 1, Q space 2 for quizzes 1 and 2. And again, if you want to employ that trick we learned earlier, we can click and drag across these two columns to select both, then reposition over the grab box in the lower right hand corner of cell Q2, and then click and drag on the grab box to auto increment and create cell Q3. All right, and again, I'm going to resize these. I'll click on G and then just drag across to I, double click in the middle to resize these. And the next two entries are for the midterm and the final exams. And again, we'll click and drag across these two. And let's try just manually resizing them. I'm going to click and drag in a little bit. And note that they both get resized according to the cell that you dragged on as your example. It's another formatting trick. And finally, we've got three other columns here. These are the computed columns. One for the straight average, one for the weighted average, and finally, we want to automate the letter grade calculation. Now, for formatting purposes, let's do a little bit of fine tailoring here. First of all, we'll click on the name entry in cell A1 and click on B to boldface it. Let's then do two things. I want to boldface the title, but then I'm going to show you another trick here. I'd like the title centered across the top of the column entries comprising the data in this spreadsheet. So I'm going to click on cell A3 and I'm going to drag across to cell N3 because that's right on top of the last column in our gradebook. And then I'm going to click on this speed button, merge cells. That treats these all as one cell. It collapses them into one cell. And then we can click on this alignment speed button and we'll center the title over our spreadsheet. So that's a little trick for doing detailed formatting on your spreadsheet. Then I also want to click and drag across the column headers, and I'll boldface those just to set them apart. Now, here's one other fine point of formatting a spreadsheet. Even if you've already dealt with spreadsheets in the past, if you know Excel or Lotus, etc. Here's the fine point about formatting column headers. Now, the name column, let me click on that. That's going to head textual data. Any data that starts with a letter is text data by default, and we read text from left to right. So you'll notice that the column header for the names starts with the letter N. That was left aligned by default. Now, the other column headers also start with letters, but they're going to head numeric data. Now, regular literacy, we read from left to right, but in numeracy, we actually do calculations from right to left, from the least significant digit to the most significant digit. We always try to align digits from right to left, not left to right. So the convention is that any column header that heads a column that's going to contain numeric data should be right aligned. You'll see that by default it's left aligned from the speed button up here. So let's click on the drop down for that speed button and click on the right align speed button. And then the grade entries, let's just put everything in that column. Let's just center that to set it off. So that's the general rule of thumb. Column headers that head textual data should be left aligned. Column headers that are going to head numeric data or the results of numeric calculations should be right aligned. And then the letter grade will just center stylistically.